Picasso pushed paint around a canvas. Michelangelo sculpted with clay. Zay works with flour, sugar, butter, and eggs. I love when someone considers their craft an art. Zainab Ilyas is a wife, mother, baker, and entrepreneur. And she's my local. Her first cafe opened in my town, and I've been a patron watching her grow over the past 5 years. You know, I've talked on the show a lot about my sweet tooth, and Zay's desserts do not disappoint. Her specialty are French macarons, and the coconut is absolutely to die for. She also creates beautiful, expertly crafted custom cakes, as well as cupcakes and brownies and other types of cookies. It's just easy to love desserts, but I also love Zay's story. She calls her cafes community cafes, and she lives that ideal. Zay knows people's names and their families when they come in. I was recently in her shop where Zay and then another woman from town who was in line in front of me, the three of us ended up talking at length on a Saturday morning, just randomly. You know, she builds relationships and she supports the community, even going as far as to use all local contractors when building out her locations. As a woman-owned brick and mortar business, COVID could have shut her down. Instead, she flourished, opening up her second location in January of 2021. You know, having a brick and mortar takes a different set of skills than being an online entrepreneur. You know, there are many physical issues to consider, like building maintenance to staffing to inventory and ordering supplies. Plus, she still has a website and has to handle social media. So I'm so excited to have this different entrepreneurial perspective shared here today. Today, I'm with the very generous and very creative Zay's Desserts founder, Zainab Ilyas. You're listening to the Long Game Podcast with Sandra Scaiano. In a world where everyone is doing, it's easy to get lost in a sea of comparison, secret tricks, and promises of overnight success. The long game is my approach to business, the actual day in and day out philosophy that you have to show up, you have to do the work, and there's no quick fixes for long-term success. I'm a web designer, digital strategist, and energetic thinker, and I'm here to share the process and lessons I experience with my clients daily who are going through the same struggles of building a business as you are. We'll hear from successful entrepreneurs sharing their long game strategies, and I'm fun, so we're going to have a little fun along the way too. Thanks for being here. Let's get to today's episode. I am so excited today to have one of my locals here. This is one of the first times I'm really doing an interview with someone from my local town. It's a real pleasure to have Zainab Ilyas. She's a mother, a wife, a baker, an entrepreneur. You know, I just thought it was really interesting to have a different perspective of someone who has a brick and mortar business on the entrepreneurial journey here. So we're going to talk long game with Zay. Welcome, Zay. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into baking.
Okay, so I am originally from Sri Lanka, and as a child, baking was something that I always loved to do. My mom, my grandma, my aunts, they were all bakers. So as a child, I would always watch them bake. And I found it so interesting, something that, I'm a foodie too, so it kind of goes with it.
Right, totally. I will have to say, we'll have a link to Zay's Instagram, and she does do more than baking. I mean, amazing savory dishes as well.
Thank you. So yeah, it's something that I always enjoyed doing. I was baking from the time I was a child, and it was always trial and error. I never went to pastry school. Everything I did, I learned myself. It was something I always had. I was so passionate about it. So I guess when you're passionate about it, you have so much love for it that if you are not happy with the way something turned out, you would keep trying until you perfect it. So it was one of those moments for me.
So let me ask you then,
yes.
What was the start of macarons? Like French macarons, like they're like a real specialty to perfect, and not having gone to pastry school. Number one, how did that become like your interest or one of them?
Yeah, I started my kids were little back in 2014. They were still young and they were in middle school and elementary school. I started a home business where I would bake for friends and family, and then they would recommend their friends and family. They would recommend me to them. So I would start baking for them. And I did cakes and cake pops and cookies and stuff. So then I was always intrigued by the French macaron. It was just starting to become famous here in the States because I know it was a very European thing, especially. So it's French macaron. Yep. So I always wondered what it was like and had never tasted one until, I got into Instagram and I see so many videos of them. And I was like, okay, let me just try tasting one first because I don't know what it tasted like. So we went into the city. We tried a few places. I tried some macarons. I was like, they were interesting. Like each macaron, they would taste of the flavor that they were. If it was a pistachio, you taste that. If it was a passion fruit, you taste that. But I thought, you know what, let me try making it. And I had no idea it was something that was so difficult to make until I tried it. And oh my goodness, the first time I made it, this was back in 2014, it was a disaster. It came out looking so ugly and so out of shape, and it wasn't baking right. And I was like, okay, I said, I had that passion about something. I'm like, you know what? I know I'm not going to give up. It didn't come out right, so I'm going to make it again. And the second time was not so great. But
what flavor? What was your flavor?
I just went simple, a vanilla bean. That's what I tried. Yep. And I mean, it tasted good, even though it came out crappy looking. I mean, it's because it's egg whites, sugar, and almond flour, and it's also
and it has to rise perfectly. That's the thing.
Yes.
I've tried them and they're flat, they've come out flat or.
Right. It has to have that feet, they call it, the macaron feet. You had to have that. It can't be too wide. It can't be too spread out. It had to look right. So, I mean, I kept trying so many times. And I remember when the kids were in school and I was baking from home, I used to call my poor husband. I used to call him, he's busy at his job and he's calling me, I'm calling him. This is because my macarons have cracked and they look horrible. And I'm crying on the phone. I'm like, my macarons came out. He's like, it's just food. But and I'm like, but it's to you, it's food. For me, it's everything. It has to come out right. It can't crack and break on me. So it was like that. He went through a lot of it. But when he came home, he would eat it because it still tasted good.
Right.
And it was it was not something that you just bake overnight and it comes out perfect. It takes years to perfect it. Yeah.
Totally. Really and that's why I think that's so interesting that you are self-taught with that. That, and then chose that as a specialty. Now that's your specialty.
That's my specialty, exactly.
Yeah, completely. So how many flavors do you do now?
We have about 24 flavors.
Wow.
And we also do seasonal flavors. So they kind of adds to the number. In the fall, we would do pumpkin cheesecake, maple pecan. Then during the holidays, we would do gingerbread and candy cane, eggnog.
Oh yes, I've had the candy cane. And I love you do the clever flavors too, like the birthday cake,
right.
That's a different one, not a traditional. I am a fan of the coconut though.
Oh, you do?
That's our number one in my family.
Nice.
So what was the point then that you decided to go from home baking to opening your first cafe? I mean, I remember when that first cafe opened in the little shop on Depew and, back over there.
Like I said, because the kids were little, and I'm one of those women who being a mom was my priority. I wanted to raise them right. I wanted to be home for them. That was my personal, outlook on how I wanted to raise my kids. So that's why I was doing it from home, so I could be home and bake in the morning while they are in school, and when they come home, I have time for them. So this was 2014, and then friends and family, they would always ask me, when are you going to open your place? And I would always tell them I'm not ready yet. I wanted to be ready. So I guess from 2014 till 2017, that's when I first opened in Dumont. I kind of built the base of my customer base, my friends. So I had a good following, through Instagram and Facebook. And social media, it really helps a lot, especially in this day and age. With business, to advertise.
Yeah, I want to talk about your social media too, because, that's one thing, and we'll get into this a little deeper about how being brick and mortar is different. I work with a lot of online entrepreneurs, but you also, you have to deal with, the physical buildings and all of those other pieces, inventory, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
But you also have to deal with online marketing because you can't do what you do without social media. And I know that that becomes a family affair. Your husband's with you on that and
Yes.
helping out.
Yes.
So how's that going? Tell us a little bit about what your strategy is, what's worked for you.
So it was, like I said, I'm the baker. Like my comfort zone and what I would, I would rather be all day is in the kitchen baking. That's what I love to do. So having that help, like my husband helped me a lot when it comes to building this business because he's a businessman and he knows how to handle certain things. So we are a team. I mean, like you can't just make it on your own by yourself. You need help. And there's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong in that. You need a team. I believe in that hashtag, the teamwork makes the dream work. And it really does.
Totally.
It's nice to have that help, and he helped me a lot. Like he would also not only help me with the business, like even advice, financial advice, things like that. So he, mainly looked after that part of it. And he also had lots of friends that he went to school with who are either in construction or in like electric and all that stuff. So that helped too. That's where getting, people who are local to help me in the construction of the business part, of the building part helped.
Right. I love that idea that, and that is one thing, like we talk on this podcast a lot about relationships and echoing just what you said, like you can't do this alone because you need to have relationships, whether it's your family support or even your entrepreneurial friends and your network support, because there's just so much that you need to be able to bounce off of people. So you've really made relationships a pillar in your business. And I love that. You created these cafes where they're quote unquote community cafes. They really are community spaces. I mean, for everyone listening, like you walk in and Zay says hello to you. She knows your name. She knows your family. She knows your children. Like she has really created that atmosphere. And I love one thing that you wrote when you were opening, and I want to hear more about your second location and that thought process. But that you used all local contractors. Like that was another way of supporting the community and being community based.
Right. So it really was, like certain people, like I said, like my husband's friends or who he went to school with, we reached out to them. And even when we first started in Dumont, because my Dumont location was very small. And
I remember that downstairs, the downstairs area and the kitchen in the back.
Right. It was so small. But even that, we started off with having our friends who were contractors, who were in construction, in plumbing, and electric. And they're the ones so they have like grown with us, starting off in Dumont. And then when we took a 2-year lease in Dumont, and then when we had to move to Bergenfield, where we are located now, it's the same guys. And they're the same guys who helped build out Cresskill, which we just opened in January. So it is that it's helping each other,
Right.
Yeah, and that's important. It's nice to give support to friends, to small businesses, that's what you need.
And it's an extension of your team. I mean, you talk about your husband and your family being part of your team, but that's another version of a team for you, as you grow. And I love your growth because I feel like I've witnessed it the whole way. I mean, I saw that launch and the opening of your first cafe and, know that you moved to a bigger venue for a bigger kitchen. Like at what point though, did a second location come in as an idea?
So having a big kitchen, our kitchen is big in Bergenfield. We have a lot of ovens. We have a lot of space. So opening Bergenfield was good because the Bergenfield community there, they're very supportive. And during the corona, we ended up closing for like 2.5 to 3 months. We wanted to, keep everybody safe. We didn't do any curbside. We didn't do any of that. And then the good thing is everyone who was working with us, who were, when we closed, we had to tell them, I understand if you had to go your own ways, but we're going to be closed for 3 months for everybody's safety. But when we opened up 3 months later, it was the same team that came back to us,
Awesome.
And then we wanted to do something more. I mean, we wanted to grow. I mean, we put so much into it. Like the kitchen is so big and we just wanted to do more. We wanted to expand. We wanted to grow. And we weren't even looking to open until we saw this spot in Cresskill. And I know it wasn't like as everybody would consider it the perfect time. Why during this time? It was COVID,
I
you
mean,
know?
this launched in January of 2021. So you were making all these plans. Like, when was that idea sparked? I mean, let's say March 2020 is when everything went,
Yeah.
onto lockdown. So
Yeah. This
when
was
did you
around,
say, we're going to do this?
I think it was around September when
Oh,
we had,
wow.
yeah, we had opened a Bergenfield because we were closed for 3 months. We came back, what was it, closed in March, April, May, June. Yeah, we were back in June, middle of June. And then this was like around August, September is when we saw this location.
That's a
And
gutsy move.
it is. And it was kind of scary too, like you don't go into
Right.
this like all experienced, like I got this. We were just business owners of like one location, and it's not easy. Running your own business is really not easy, even though if you see my TikToks and my Instagram videos, you think she's living the life.
Right. Totally.
But it's hard, it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, I guess, like the passion that we have. I always believe like this. There's no like perfect time to do anything. You can't wait for that perfect moment. Sometimes it may come to you during the worst of times when you're not expecting it, when you're not looking for it. When this location, we just happened to see it. It was close to home, which also helps. We were like, let's just take a look into it. Let's see if this is a space that we could open. And everything just fell into place. And I always believe if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And it'll come
Oh my
your
gosh,
way,
totally. I was thinking the same thing as you were saying that. Like the universe, it was meant to be for you when everything falls into place.
Thank
So
you.
are you doing most of the cooking then in the bigger kitchen
Yes.
and most of the baking and then bringing over? That's
Yes.
awesome.
That's
that
what
really
we're-
allows you to build systems, right? Systems for
Right.
baking and production.
Yes, because of the big kitchen that we have, and now with we have to, because we are planning to open up our third in Manhattan.
Oh my gosh, that's like breaking news. That's so exciting.
Thank you, Sandra. We're planning to open up somewhere in July, hopefully early July. So like I said, we have that big kitchen. So
Right.
we have to just get more ovens in, hire more bakers in time to get ready for that.
Okay, so let me ask you on that piece. How is it executing your vision through other bakers? Like, how has that process been? Because I know that's something that, like, all my listeners, we talk about, like, when you need to get help, when you're scaling your business, you can't do it all yourself. So how has that been training people for that quality and all of that? Like, tell us a little bit about
Oh
that
my God.
experience.
I could write a book about that because that's the hardest part. For me, when I first opened, Sandra, it was just me. I was the only baker.
Right.
Because I just started this off as a hobby. I'm like, let me just try this. So when we opened in September in Dumont in 2017, I was the only baker. I had no help. I just baked my macarons. I baked for like a whole week, prepping up to that day of the grand opening. And when we opened on that grand opening at 10 o'clock, by 4 o'clock, I had sold out of everything. Everything. And I told my husband, I was like, I don't think I could do this. I'm a rose. I can't, because I'm the only one. And I was open Sunday. I'm like, I had nothing to serve.
Right.
So we ended up closing on that Sunday because there was zero products. And then my husband's like, you need to get help. And at that time, like we grow each year, not just in age, but in also in wisdom and in experience and everything. So 2017, I was like, because I'm very particular and picky with who I choose to work with me. They have to be passionate about what they do. And even when it comes to baking. So for me, I told my husband, I was like, I don't trust anybody to bake because everything has to taste like how I make it.
Exactly. And be meticulous. They have to. Yes.
And that's the hardest part, like, so that's what I told him. I said, I don't think I want to get anybody because no one's going to bake like the way I bake. And no one's going to make it like how I do. But then he was like, yeah, but this is where you train people, follow the recipe and make it like you do it. And that took time. That took a long time for me to gain the trust and finally start hiring. And then
that's major growth.
It really
is a growth mindset to let go and step into that role of being a leader in the kitchen where you're going to guide them to produce for you and be part of your team. Kudos to you.
Thank you, Sandra. It was hard because I've been through for the first month, 2 months, it was just me. And I would just sell whatever I made that day because that's how I got by. Because I'm like, I can't make 24 flavors.
People would come in. Do you have? No, don't
exactly.
have that.
And then it was because I knew it will do well because of the fact that I had good products. Like everything I make, if I wouldn't eat it, if I wouldn't enjoy eating it, I'm not going to sell it. It has to taste good. Because like I said, I'm a foodie. I'm very particular about food and how it tastes and the quality. Because everything we make is fresh ingredients from scratch. Nothing is bought in like boxes, no box mixes, no canned frosting, nothing, right? So it was hard making all those things. And I have a big menu. It wasn't just macarons. It was macarons, it's brownies, it's cupcakes, cookies, dessert bars, and
custom cakes.
I want to
talk about the custom cakes too.
Right. So eventually I would say this is 2021. So by now I have 5 bakers. And even all of them, it took time to bring them up to the way I want it done, how I expect it to be done. So it's going good. Thank God for that.
Yeah. Did you work on creating all those systems? I mean, you created your recipes, but then you personally were teaching them and going through mentoring them, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they come to me, they're qualified bakers. So they come to me. And then it's like, yeah, I know how you know how to bake, but this is how I bake my desserts. This is how I expect it to be done. So it was trying to, show them and teach them how I expect things to be done. So now it's going good. And I'm only, looking for more people so I could hire to get on my team, especially when we start with New York. I know it's going to be busy, really busier than we are. So,
oh yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Cause that's the thing, like in online business, I mean, when I have my assistant working with me and I need to show her something, I just record my screen while I'm doing something and send her a video, and then she knows how to do it. So it's different to be in person and have to really take people through those steps. So, I understand how that process and that project is, so to speak. So, well, that's awesome. And tell us, like, I want to dive into also like the custom cake piece, because you being self-taught, like, you just have a natural creativity. I mean, I love your sugar cookies and how they're decorated. And I mean, you can't just like step off the street and start doing that, like, did you always have this creative piece in you, or did it really just come out through baking? Or
I think it did, like, from the time I was a child, it was something like I would bake. I mean, I didn't do sugar cookies back then because it wasn't big. Growing up in Sri Lanka, it wasn't something that was big, the sugar cookies. Now it is. So when I was baking and doing my business from home, that's when I really started it.
I mean, they're so detailed and everything is perfect, the creativity on it. So like you have to have, and I know you talk about art as well in that, like you consider your work artistry. So, you haven't had art training or anything like that. You're just naturally artistic.
Yeah. And you learn and, you just learn and through trial and error. And then, when you make a mistake, when I first used to make so many mistakes baking from home, and I used to beat myself up over it. I would be disappointed, but I didn't just let it stay there and forget about it. I kept trying. And I still make mistakes. We're human. We still make mistakes. I try my best to learn from the previous mistakes so that in recipe wise, like when I'm making something, I'm like, this is what I did last time. I'm not going to do that this time. And then you just write your notes, side notes on this is what you have to do. And you just like the trial and error, you try and then you try your best, you try hard and you finally get something right. And then you're proud of it.
Right. And you perfect the process. Yeah. I mean, that's long game. I talk here a lot about it doesn't happen overnight, overnight success. Like you have to show up. You've got to do the work on all of these pieces. So same with you in terms of that. And how do you go about, like, do you feel like now with your offerings, like you're kind of capped, or do you say, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to do an eggnog something at the holidays, or, what's your process for adding desserts to your offerings? Or do you feel like I'm pretty good now, I'm focusing on opening the next location?
I'm one of those who are always open to new things, open to trying, open to experimenting. For example, when we started making macarons, we used to get so many, like we still do. We get macarons that are baked weird and they crack and they are not up to quality of how I want to serve it to customers. And I was left with so many macaron shells. And macarons are expensive because it's not only ingredients, but it's also the labor that goes into making it.
Totally.
So I had so many macaron shells that were broken. And I was like, I don't want to throw those out. And you can't snack on them either. You could snack for days, for months. So I was like, why not I reuse these macarons in another way that it'll help my business and it's also not a wastage. So I thought, why not me crush it and put it into ice cream? Because we do serve ice cream. So we had so many, and then we have like all colored shells, like every color of the rainbow, we make the macarons with. So we had so many macaron shells, and the supplier who does our ice cream, they're a family business who has been doing ice cream for years. So I collaborated and I was like, why don't I put my broken macaron shells into the vanilla ice cream and serve it at the cafe? And it became such a hit. It was such a hit. Like it's one of the top ice creams that we serve at the cafes. And I just started making them.
It's brilliant. Thank you. Good for you. So available to go, right?
It's available. Yes. So it's available at both stores. And my goal is to slowly get them into like a Whole Foods and like, other big companies like that. So we're starting small. They come in pint sizes. And then every time the macarons break now, I don't cry over it. I'm like, you know what? It's going into the ice cream.
Right. Exactly. I actually heard an interview with the baker who started Milk Bar in the city, and she would be making cakes, and they were doing like their cakes are a certain shape. So they shaved this all off. And she was like, look at all this extra that we have. And they took that extra and started making cake pops from it because it was like shaved off. And she said, I mean, they sell something like 12,000 cake pops a week, like something insane. And it's like their best seller from the scraps. And it's like, so they're able to do these cakes and then the cake pops. That's really ingenious. And it's just resourcefulness as well that you have to have when you're an entrepreneur, right? You've got to, you can't let that go to waste.
Yes.
I love that. And it's also just a nod to your creativity. Like you really are a natural at this. Like, what can I do? What am I going to think about? And it's part of the whole creative life that you live, not just inside your shop,
Right. Yeah, it is, So that's why, like, without the same basic flavors, even with macarons, we change it up. Like we do seasonal things. So thing is, I know French macarons have like that, what do you call that? Like the standard of the pistachio, the rose, the lavender. But here, I just wanted to make it more like American flavors. Do the bubble gum, do the cotton candy, the birthday cake.
Yeah.
Like make it interesting so that every month, every season, every holiday has like a special macaron. Like our Mother's Day macaron, we use edible ink, edible food gel, and we draw, and we could write Happy Mother's Day, I love Mom, draw flowers on it. And things like that, just to make it interesting. Because I know people love when they come in, they always like to come in for the brownie. They always want to come in for the s'mores bar and the macarons. And I would love to introduce more desserts. I just came up with 2 gluten-free items.
Oh, cool.
Yes, because I had so many customers who were wanting, and I know the macarons are gluten-free, but they wanted something else too, like maybe a cookie or a brownie. So I came up with a chocolate chunk cookie, which is gluten-free. And then I had my fitness buddies who were like, can you put something protein into it too? and I was like, okay. So I came up with a protein cookie that has a little bit of protein.
Oh, I've seen that. Right.
Yeah, it's like a chocolate peanut
chunk.
butter. Yes.
Yeah, it's got like a chunk. Well, you know what I think is so interesting too about all those different flavors and pieces. I mean, it's not trying to be somebody for something to everybody, but like it expands. Like me as a customer, I shop for my whole family. My kids find flavors that they like. Like, they may not want the pistachio. They want, my daughter's there for that cotton candy, so it actually, when I come in, I'm buying more than just for me. I'm buying for all of them. So, that it's really smart to be able to do that and to think of who your audience is. I mean, that's another thing that we talk about here so much is like, know your audience, know who's walking into your store and to be able to serve them.
That's true. I'm trying to work on something vegan soon, because the thing is this, it's not like that I can't make it. It's just that for me, it has to taste good.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't want to grab a whole bunch of ingredients because they are vegan or they are gluten free and just throw everything in there and make something that tastes horrible.
Yeah,
it has
completely.
to taste good. You need a good product. So that takes time to practice, to test bake, to change things around. And like you bake it one way and you're not happy, then you got to rewrite your recipe and come up with something good. So I am working on those because I have customers who come in and ask for that. So
yeah, I'm a customer when that happens. My nephew, I'm always looking for good vegan treats. So definitely.
oh
So tell us, you talked a little bit earlier about, you touched on TikTok and what you're doing. Like that's a different
yeah
realm. I mean, Instagram, it's like you can do a lot of local marketing through
yes.
Facebook and Instagram. TikTok kind of brings you to this broader world. So how'd you get into it? What was the choice there? Like, tell us a little bit about the TikTok strategy.
I've always loved, like growing up, I love drama and theater. It's something I love. I always wanted to act and be on theater, and something I always loved. But when it was like something that I looked as my career. It was something that, it was like a hobby, something that I really enjoyed doing. And I guess it's also the person who I am. I love to have fun. I always joke with like even my kids, and I tell I'm 16 at heart. And they're like, you know how kids are, they roll their eyes and everything. I know. But you have to believe you have to be true to yourself and who you are, and for me, I didn't even know much about TikTok until I started watching some videos, and I'm like, this is fun. This is really interesting. And for me, it was, we work so hard in our kitchens every day. Sometimes it's nice just to take a little break, like stop what you're doing, guys. Let's do a TikTok. And not everyone's crazy about it. They're like, do we have to? I'm like, yes. I said it was part of being hired. You have to do a TikTok with me.
Right, I told you, it was in your job description.
Yes. And it was fun. And it's also it's like who I am as a person. I love to have fun. I love to dance. I love to bring out, my personality in this, that it can't always be work, bake. You just need to just take a few minutes, let's enjoy something. And and I try to like base it around the kitchen and with what we do with either my baking tools or with my team or something like a group, something. It's just fun. It's just how sometimes we call it TikTok Wednesdays. When that's like when we're like, all right, it's time to do a TikTok. And everybody knows it's so funny. Sometimes they remind me, Zay, remember what day it is? And I'm like, because we're so busy. Like, oh, wait, that's right. It's Wednesday. It's TikTok Wednesdays.
Oh, and now like with the different locations, you're able to expand and do some different things as well. So that's super fun. I know that's kind of a goal of mine at some point, to start moving more into the video realm. It's, I suffer from the same thing, all of us, like there's only so much time in the day, and I need to, I'm slowly shifting my boat to be able to do some other things for myself. I mean, this podcast was one of them. Like this, that's for me was like I'm over a year now doing the podcast weekly, and thank you. And this was really my first test of like, okay, I can commit, I can make this a habit and do this. And that's really what it is. It's a way to express yourself and connect with people outside of you. And I love that because, as entrepreneurs, we are more than just our jobs or who people think we are, and there's the family life and that other piece in it as well. So
yeah, we need that time for ourselves, We need that time for ourselves, not just, not just as in, oh, I need to go to the spa, I need to get my hair done. It's also about, what do I love to do for myself? What do I find fun? And spend some time on that. And it's all the mindset, right? It's how you think. If you're overworked, and if all you're doing is one thing that's in your career, it's going to drive you crazy because you're always like so stressed with work. So like all you're doing is focusing on this and calling this person and doing this inventory. Sometimes you just want to be like, you know what? I just want to have some fun. And in my workplace, I'm not at a club having fun. I'm in my kitchen, I'm in my kitchen. And those few minutes that I spend just thinking of what TikTok can I make, or what Instagram post do I do? Just make it fun. It helps me. It really does. Because I find myself laughing. My team laughs. Everyone's laughing in the kitchen because you've done something really silly and it's fun, which my kids call cringy.
Well, you have to bring fun to it because you want to enjoy what you do and who you're with. Like that for me is one of the biggest pieces I see with everything you're saying about TikTok and your social media strategy is like your food is made with love. And part of that is because you're happy people and you're happy in the kitchen and all of that. So I think that's a really important piece. I always say to people that, while I'm sending an email or while I'm working on their stuff, like I'm smiling. And it's like, because I'm into what I'm doing. And I'm like, that's me putting love into the digital space, like just the energy into it. So
yeah, that's important, because you're doing it because not someone else wants you to do it or asks you to do it. This is coming from your heart. It's something that you love to do, something that you enjoy doing. And anything that's done with so much love and passion, it will always succeed because you're not going to stop, because this is your driving force. This is what makes you do what you have to do every day because you love what you do. So that's important.
Right. And keep going back and making it the best it can be.
Of course, for sure.
I just want to thank you so much for being here. And, to everyone listening, we're going to link to Zay's TikTok so that you can see all the fun happening in the kitchen. We're going to link to her Instagram where you can follow her. And of course, her website where you can go check out her desserts and her locations. If you're local to New Jersey, you can order a custom cake and go in and pick it up, and keep tabs on when the New York location is opening. What part of town is it going to be in?
It's on the Upper West Side. 83rd in Amsterdam. Oh. That's where it's going to be.
Perfect. That's really exciting. I mean, that was one of my what's next for you. And that's a great segue. So thank you so much for joining us. And, I wish you all the luck with, your continued growth.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you. I feel so honored that, you had me on your podcast. It was really fun. It was interesting. And thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining me today. You can access more info in the show notes at thelonggamepodcast.net. If today's show connected with you in some way, please share it with your friends or hop on iTunes and leave me a review. Until next time, keep playing the long game.